Hey guys, Zane here from the Infinite Jukebox with another album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new dry cleaning record, Stumpwork. Stumpwork is the latest studio album from the English post-punk band Dry Cleaning, a band that have definitely been on the rise within the post-punk / alternative rock scene within the past couple of years, especially since they released their first full-length LP last year with the album New Long Leg, and that was an album that I personally enjoyed. However, it was also an album that proved that Dry Cleaning aren't exactly on the same level as a lot of their superior post-punk revivalist peers in England at the moment, as there were enough flaws to end up holding their debut album back. I mean, there were times where it felt a bit forced, there were times where it just kind of felt a bit awkward and not necessarily passionate enough for the slacker immediacy that they were ultimately going for, and generally speaking, New Long Leg, while recommendable to post-punk fans, was not the best album of the year by any means. It wasn't even the best post-punk album of last year, but nonetheless, it showed a band with potential, and that is one of the most important takeaways you can have from an album that you don't necessarily adore. It's a band filled with potential, and unfortunately, Dry Cleaning don't really manage to live up to that potential because although they do make some changes that ultimately benefit the band, they also still have enough issues, enough problems, enough flaws that Stumpwork isn't necessarily any better. One of the primary improvements being made on Stumpwork is that Dry Cleaning take up a significantly more laid-back, slacker rock kind of tone and vibe about them, which is something that was very much needed on New Long Leg, as New Long Leg had a lot of compositions and instrumentals that felt fairly immediate in nature, with performances that were pretty much the exact opposite, these purposefully lazy, slacker rock adjacent performances that you often find in post-punk, but the thing is, that only works if it's a lazy, slacker rock-esque instrumental, and those on the first album really weren't for the most part. They were just performed in that particular manner, and it resulted in an album that, again, sounded awkward, forced, etc., from time to time, even if it wasn't throughout the entire track list. And Stumpwork almost, to some extent, reinvents itself. I'm not going to say it's a complete change in the primary forces of what make Dry Cleaning, but it definitely is enough of a change-up to be noticeable. Dry Cleaning still maintain their original identity here, which is important for them because it's what makes them stand out. Unfortunately, that also means that they still maintain their lack of directness and direct engagement with the listener, so take that for what you will. It's an improvement, but at the same time, it's kind of the same. Just know that if you were a fan of their prior album, Stumpwork is somewhat of a more laid-back and even lethargic record in comparison. Perhaps it would be wrong to say that it's a totally lazy-sounding album, because you can tell there was effort put into this album, just as you could tell there was effort put into the prior Dry Cleaning releases, but nonetheless, they do take up more of a melody-focused and generally lyrical-focused record compared to previous efforts. In a continuation from the prior Dry Cleaning works, guitarist Tom Dowse's guitar work just really feels underused here overall. You could definitely argue that it's utilized within the proper parameters of post-punk with this very minimalistic and somewhat background instrument sort of style, almost directly opposing the guitar heaviness of a lot of proper traditional punk, and for that I can appreciate what his work here has done. However, he really does have potential to do something interesting and experimental that really sets Dry Cleaning out from the crowd. You can tell in the way that he performs with a fair amount of directness, acting as the only member of the band that ever feels super highly engaged on purpose, and overall it just kind of feels like he's being shoved into the back, and he plays his part, he plays his role well, there's no denying that, but at the same time it also feels like he could be doing a lot more. There's also frontwoman Florence Shaw, who does some pretty admirable vocal work here overall, as she continues to become more and more of this deadpan delivery type of individual, which is pretty much entirely suitable for the style of music that's going on here, perhaps even more suitable than it was on New Long Leg. Post-punk, of course, has had many monotonous vocalists over the years. Even some of the most famous individuals, like Ian Curtis, that have come out of the realm of post-punk have been very monotonous in nature. However, Florence Shaw really does not feel like a copycat or anything like that. She has her place in the band, and she plays her role very, very well, just like her bandmates. The reason that I say her vocal style perhaps fits the tone of this record better than its predecessor is just due to the fact that things are even more slacker-based here, so slacker instrumentals, slacker vocalist / spoken word enthusiast here, they kind of go hand in hand, you know, it only makes sense that they work well together, and Shaw does some strong work because she is a strong lyricist for the most part. There are admittedly a couple of lyrical misses on this album, like Hot Penny Days, that do try to deliver this classic trademark British post-punk sarcasm and dry storytelling, and it just doesn't go over super well overall, and it's the only aspect of the record that feels kind of redundant in comparison to other post-punk acts, even just other British post-punk acts, the post-punk revival that's going on right now. It kind of feels like more of the same in the lyrical department at times, but still, Florence Shaw, strong songwriter, and she does some nice work here. If anything, Florence Shaw's decision to take up more of a spoken word delivery style here is actually something that greatly benefits her melodicism in terms of actually going along with the track itself, and that is something that will appeal to everybody, to be sure. A lot of the differentiation between the instrumental and these very dry, monotonous, almost just talking over the instrumental kind of vocals that were like Lou Reed if you were even more lethargic, it won't be for everybody, that's for sure, and it won't appeal to every crowd. It might not even appeal to some pre-established dry cleaning fans who are already accustomed to fairly monotonous vocal delivery from Florence Shaw, but nonetheless, I personally think that they actually suit the record very well, and her work as a vocalist, again, vocalist/speaker, is something that just pairs very nicely with the direction that they're going in. And, I mean, sure, it's not the most amazing, unique direction in the world, but they're doing it well, and there's nothing that can take that away from them. So, overall, Stumpwork is a good album overall, but the main issue is pretty similar to their previous studio album in that it has some very good, even great qualities, and some very weak, even bad qualities that really do level it out to an album that's still highly enjoyable and highly recommendable for post-punk fans, but for anybody outside of the realm of post-punk, something that just isn't really that recommendable overall. If you aren't familiar with the band Dry Cleaning, or at the very least the basics of post-punk, you probably shouldn't check this one out, but if you are, and you like the previous Dry Cleaning album, you're just interested in newer post-punk, or maybe you're specifically interested in the post-punk revival going on at the moment, mainly centered around in the UK, then, you know what, give this one a go. You might like it even more than I did, and I liked it quite a bit. I'm going to give this record 3.5 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this album review. I have been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.